Okay, let's be honest. When you think about your skeleton, what pops into your head? Probably just a rigid frame, right? Like scaffolding for a building. But what if I told you that deep inside you, there's a bustling, living city, a metropolis that's constantly being torn down and rebuilt? Yeah. So let's grab our hard hats. We're going to take a tour of the most incredible, constantly evolving skyscraper you've ever seen, your very own skeleton.
So let's just get right to the heart of it, the big question. Is bone actually a living thing? I mean, for most of us, the answer probably feels like a pretty obvious no. But well, the truth? It might just completely change the way you think about your body forever. And the answer is a massive, resounding yes. It's so far from being a lifeless scaffold. Bone is a living, breathing tissue. In fact, it's one of the most active and complex organs in your entire body. And believe me, it has a very long to-do list. And what a to-do list it is. I mean, yeah, we all know the obvious stuff, providing support, protecting our vital organs, but your bones are also a factory, cranking out blood cells. There are banks storing essential minerals like calcium, and they're even a pantry housing energy reserves as lipids. It's a true multitasker, for sure. All right, so if bone is this bustling city, every city needs its workers, right? Its residents. So let's dive in and meet the microscopic construction crew that keeps this entire operation running. First up on the crew, we have the osteoblasts. Think of these guys as the master builders. Their whole job is to create and lay down this flexible protein framework for new bone. It's a substance called osteoid. Basically, they're the crew pouring the fresh concrete for our skyscraper. Okay, so what happens next? Well, once an osteoblast finishes its job and gets totally surrounded by that new matrix, it doesn't just pack up and leave. Nope, it matures. It transforms into an osteocyte. And these are the site managers. They're literally entombed inside the bone. And from there, they monitor everything. Minerals, proteins, you name it. They're the communication network that regulates the whole bone mass. And of course, no construction site is complete without a demolition crew. So enter the osteoclasts. These are these big, powerful cells, and their job is to dissolve and break down old or damaged bone. They use these specialized acids and enzymes to just meticulously clear away the old stuff, making way for the osteoblasts to build again. It's this constant dance between demolition and construction, and it's so thorough that you basically get a whole new skeleton every 10 years. Wild, right? Okay, so we've met the workforce. Now let's zoom out a bit and look at the grand design, the architecture itself. Because the real genius of bone is how it uses two totally different, but perfectly complementary building materials. So on the outside, you've got this dense, super rigid, compact bone. That's your protective shell. But then on the inside, you have this light, porous, spongy bone, which forms this amazing inner lattice. Let's take a look at how these two work together. And this table, wow, it really highlights the genius of the design. You've got the compact bone on the outside, that dense, solid shell built for pure brute strength. But then deep inside, you find the spongy bone. It's got this incredible honeycomb structure that's not just lightweight, but it's also engineered to resist stress coming from all different directions. And you see all those little spaces? They're not empty, no way. That's where the bone marrow lives, the factory for all of our blood cells. This just perfectly illustrates the point. I mean, this design is an absolute masterclass in engineering. That lightweight inner core of spongy bone, that's what makes it possible for us to move. Think about it. If our skeletons were made entirely of that solid, compact bone, we would be way too heavy to even get up and walk around. All right, hang on, because now we're going really deep. We are zooming right past the city limits and into a single building block of that compact bone. Welcome to the micrometropolis known as the osteon. So, the osteon, this is the fundamental functional unit of compact bone. Just think of it as a single, self-contained city tower inside our bigger skyscraper. So let's actually see how one of these is built, starting from the inside and working our way out. So, everything starts from the center and builds outwards. Right at the core, you've got the central canal. That's the main supply line, bringing in blood vessels and nerves. Wrapped around that are the lamellae. Think of them like concentric, fortified walls of mineralized bone. But who lives in these walls? Well, tucked away in these tiny little apartments called the crunae, you'll find our site managers, the osteocytes. And how do they all talk to each other? Through this incredible network of microscopic tunnels called canaliculi, which connect every single apartment back to that main supply line. It is a perfectly integrated system. So we've seen this beautifully organized, super dynamic system. But it's a really delicate balance. So what happens when that demolition crew starts to overpower the builders? Well, the foundations of our skyscraper can start to crumble. Like we've been saying, bone is constantly being remodeled. That whole dance between the osteoclasts clearing out old bone and the osteoblasts laying down new bone, that's happening literally all the time. And keeping that in perfect balance is the absolute key to the strength of the whole structure. And when that balance gets thrown off, you can end up with conditions like osteoporosis. This is a disease where your bone density actually decreases. And it's because the demolition crew, our osteoclasts, are working way faster than the building crew, the osteoblasts. The whole structure just becomes more porous and fragile. This chart shows the problem perfectly. With osteoporosis, bone resorption, that's the osteoclasts, it's in total overdrive. At the same time, bone production by the osteoblasts has slowed way down. The end result? A net loss of bone mass over time. And that leads to weaker, more fragile bones that are at a much, much higher risk of breaking. And there are several things that can tip these scales in the wrong direction. The risk definitely goes up with age, especially for women after menopause, but Lifestyle plays a huge role too. We're talking about things like a diet that's low in vitamin D and calcium, smoking, or even just long periods of inactivity. All of that can weaken the foundations of your internal skyscraper. And look, this is not some abstract concept we're talking about. This is happening inside you right now, at this very moment. As you're listening to me, your osteoclasts and osteoblasts are hard at work. They're remodeling your skeleton, they're responding to the stresses of your day, and they're making sure your internal skyscraper stands strong. So from now on, when you think of your skeleton, please don't picture a static, lifeless frame. Picture a dynamic, living city that is constantly, completely rebuilding itself. And that leaves you with a pretty fascinating thought, doesn't it? The skeleton you have today is not the one you'll have a decade from now. So, who will you be in 10 years?